Okay, John, shortly after you came on board, you observed that Petaluma is a very engaged community with articulate and passionate community members. You spoke about the importance of tempering that passion with practicality and how people needed to seek solutions that transcend their own individual needs in order to find workable compromise. Reflecting on some of the latest political controversies involving development approval process, do you feel we've made any progress on that front, or have we slipped backwards?
I think we have made some progress on that front, and difficult choices perhaps have brought us to a place where practicality is taking more of a prominent position in the decision-making process. With less to work with, we're having to make hard choices about what we do and what we don't engage in. And so I have seen the City Council make some of those kinds of choices, due to where we are resource-wise, that they might not otherwise have been quite so quick to make. With respect to the functioning of the community as a whole, I think that's a message that we need to. It's a new day, and we don't have as much really to work with as we used to. That's a message that I know people are hearing and that people are increasingly understanding. But I think it's one that we continue to need to try to emphasize for people that while we all have expectations of our local governments, that our ability as a government to meet those expectations is hindered greatly, or hamstrung, and there's going to need to be some additional calibration of people's expectations. And I haven't seen as much of that as I would like to, but a lot of the communication that I get from people starts with, we understand how tough things are, and that's a good start.
Okay, John, one of your chief goals at the time you began serving was to engage in team building to forge consensus among City Council members on an overall vision and set of goals for the city. How has that effort gone, especially with the new City Council that was seated earlier this year?
Well, the effort involved the new City Council that was seated this year. I hadn't been able to pull the goal-setting session together prior to that. The closer we got to November of last year, the less necessary it was to engage the old City Council. So we did come together as a group in early January of this year and conducted both a team building and a goal-setting session that the council spent the better part of the Saturday engaged in, and I thought it went very well. I was surprised to find how many points of commonality the council members have, and really how much of the time they agree with each other on the majority of issues. We found at about 80% of the time there really was not a lot of difference of opinion, amongst that group, at least as expressed, for the purposes of that exercise. The council came out of that session with what I considered to be goals that were set at the appropriate kind of global policy level, rather than getting down to a more project level. There wasn't a lot of micromanaging going on in the goal setting, and their goals were broad community-based kinds of goals. A lot of them had to do with growth management here in the community, and prioritizing development was one, streamlining the development process was another, implementing the Central Petaluma specific plan, creating an investment-based redevelopment strategy, creating an overall economic development strategy, those kinds of goals. So the council was really in the place where I think a council needs to be in a goal-setting session, or coming out of one.
Right.
And with respect to the team building part of that, they agreed on a kind of set of ground rules for how they would behave as individuals and as a group. And by and large, I've seen that set of ground rules adhered to. I think it's the sort of thing that requires some reaffirmation from time to time. But on the whole, I felt like it went pretty well.
Okay. Since that time, there's been a number of 4-3 split in terms of votes on key issues, as well as some very prominent philosophical splits, most recently on the matters of shopping center development and the proposed abolishment of the planning department, the abolishment of the planning department and the proposed abolishment of Spark. During a recent budget meeting in which council members were sparring over the Regency shopping center issue, you cautioned them against arguing and stated, "What I really need right now is everybody pulling in the same direction." Do you think that's going to happen with the current council?
It would be unrealistic to think that that's going to happen on a every single issue basis. You know, the city council people come from different places philosophically. You know, they do represent their constituents, and the constituents don't all agree with each other. I think that on the issues that really matter, the council has the ability to come together as a group and pull in the same direction. The outcome of that particular vote, which was the determination of this coming year's budget, as difficult as it was for the council to have to make some of the decisions regarding cutbacks and layoffs, and despite the reservations that had been expressed by some of the council members about the way the budget had been built and some of the major policy choices that they had to make, at the end of the day, they voted to adopt that budget because they understood that for, you know, I think the greater good of moving the process along, that was what was necessary. So they did what they needed to do, and they said what they needed to say, at least in their own minds, along the way. At the time, we had digressed somewhat from what I thought was the real purpose at hand, which was to be discussing budget policy, and we had gotten more into a discussion regarding, you know, development approvals. And part of what I was getting at that point in time was, well, let's come back to the issue at hand here. Let's talk about, you know, what it takes to get this budget balanced. And I definitely did need them all pulling in the same direction. And more generally, that's where we need to be. You know, I view us as a city team. You know, they and I and my staff, we're all a unit, and we all need to see ourselves that way. The city council as well as me and my staff. So, you know, the more that we can present a united front and understand what it is we're doing, I think, you know, the better kinds of decisions that we're going to make.
Okay. You aptly predicted that this year's budget would be a huge challenge, and many very difficult decisions have been made to reduce expenses, along with some new ideas such as outsourcing the management of the city pool. More cuts may be yet to come. What can or should the city be doing to generate more revenues?
Well, the city needs to look at all of the traditional means that it has for raising revenues. We talked about raising our user fees, so that the special beneficiaries of those programs are paying, you know, the going rate, the fair value of those services. We should be looking at our, you know, internal service rates, as well as, you know, how we're charging between funds, to make sure that we're doing that correctly, but maximizing those charges. The city council should be, or we should be, implementing this economic development strategy so that we can focus on all aspects of our economy to get, you know, each one of those areas, you know, stronger than it currently is, supporting both the existing businesses as well as attracting new businesses and complementary businesses, so that our property tax and our sales tax and our TOT, you know, are all bolstered from where they are today. And of course, one piece of that then is the retail mix, and, you know, we should be trying to cite, you know, retail development that is complementary to the city's vision of where it wants to go and consistent with the general plan, and, you know, beneficial, you know, on a cost-benefit analysis basis to the city, as well as bringing those services to the public that it currently has fewer of than it would like.